Welcome to Professor Sky's Spam channel, where I talk about anything that's not new music. And you read the thumbnail correctly. The 2021 horror movie Halloween Kills is about 9/11. Now, I'm not interested in intentionality here. I'm not certain if it is intentional or unintentional subtext, but I am here to talk about the subtext that is very clearly there. Now, this may be a great movie. I think time will tell. It's the middle part of a trilogy. It's being made with some amount of forethought. There are a lot of criticisms that are very valid, some of which I will address here. But what I want to do is make you just go back in time. Imagine this movie was not released in 2021, a month after the 20th anniversary of September 11th. Imagine it was released in 2005. You see, there have been a lot of movies that deal with September 11th, but there's only been one good one, Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds. And when you watch that movie, that subtext is inescapable. It is a part of the film. And I think, if you think about this movie, Halloween Kills, you'll see a very similar kind of subtext. Now, this came to me right off the bat. The very first scene in the movie, spoilers, by the way, if you haven't seen it, don't watch this. You should watch it. It's good. I love horror movies. That's the thing about me you may not know. I watch a lot of horror movies. I watched this with my daughter, not the baby, the teenager. We watch horror movies together. We had a fun time. Watched it yesterday. And, one of the first things that happens in the movie, to me, is very clearly a September 11th reference. The building's on fire. Laurie Strode's house is on fire. And all of the first responders go rushing in. Listen, I'm about the same age as the filmmakers who made this movie. There's no way that you can imagine a bunch of first responders, a bunch of firefighters running into a building with the floors falling without thinking, on some level, now I was thinking this directly about September 11th. Mind you, Michael Myers does not escape. Michael Myers systematically kills every single firefighter who came to respond. Not a single survivor left. So right off the bat, that puts me in this mindset where we have this inescapable force that is taking out first responders. Not to mention all the cops that died in the last movie. This really does set you up emotionally. You're seeing dead firefighters, which is one of the main losses in September 11th. That's how we start. Now, for the rest of my evidence, and again, I'm not really interested in evidence, okay? You can leave comments with thoughts about why you think this is BS. That's fine. But there's a couple of refrains in this movie that I think really point to this as being about September 11th. In particular, two things that people make fun of. I've watched a couple videos about this, a couple good videos, a couple mediocre videos about this movie, and they all sort of point out the same thing. Like, there's a ridiculous amount of repetition of 40 years ago tonight, 40 years ago, 40 years ago, and evil dies tonight. Evil dies tonight. I swear to God, people say that more than the word the. They just say evil dies tonight so much. So I want to think about these two expressions as a sort of combination, like as a way of thinking about America's response to terrorism and America's governmental response to terrorism. You see, this whole speech that's given by Anthony McAll's character, Tommy Doyle, it's okay. It's fine enough acting. But there's something about it. You had this sort of privileged, middle-aged, middle-class, doughy white American who's defining himself by this tragedy, who sees his whole worldview through this tragedy that he does not fully understand. It is this bewildered remembrance, and truthfully, if America's being honest with itself, it still doesn't understand September 11th. Not really. Not really. We understand the pain and the trauma and the suffering, but to a certain extent, we are all in this kind of incomprehensible bewilderment. 40 years ago. Again, this insistence on this very specific day. This very specific day when incomprehensible terror hit home. So what about this evil dies tonight? This whole mob justice theme. I do think part of it is about just how, truthfully, Americans reacted, not on a governmental level, but on a human level, relatively well to September 11th in terms of not getting mob justice on the wrong people. I would say as a country we reacted fairly admirably. Maybe we were just in shock. Please feel free to contradict me in the comments if that was not your experience. But still, this refrain of evil dies tonight, it ends up being misdirected mob justice. And I think this is about what happens when you get terrorized. We were all in favor. I'll never forget, I was on a college tour when the Oklahoma bombing happened. And the person who I was visiting sat there, and we were watching TV, a little tiny TV in his dorm room. And he said, "I just can't wait till we find the country that did this and bomb the hell out of them." Well, the country that did this is America. Timothy McVeigh lived an hour that way. Anyways, the mob justice scene, I think, maybe I'm going too far. I don't think I am. I think it's a lot like American foreign policy. Going after Afghanistan, going after Iraq in the name of September 11th, this poor guy in the hospital. Fundamentally, one of the great flaws of the movie is this over-insistence on the importance of this one day, how annoying the mob justice is, and then how irrationally people act. But that's the nature of fear. It messes up your reasoning. And I think that's what we're seeing. Part of what makes this movie so great is that it's in the middle of this trauma. It's in the middle of this response. Because it's on the same day and people are responding to these deaths at the same time. You'll see someone getting, their friend getting killed, and then they can't even move. They can't even run away. They are just absolutely, completely off. As a weird, super political note on this already oddly political video about a movie which people claim is not political, is the fact that we don't matter. Laurie Strode doesn't matter. She learns, okay, so my baby's upstairs, she's crying. She wants Laurie Strode to matter. She wants to read deeper meaning into her surviving, into his actions. She wants to understand. She wants to make sense of this. Why did they do this? Why did they do this? Why does he do this? He's coming here. This is going to happen. Fundamentally, she's told in one of the greatest scenes of the movie, no, he's not after you. He just wants to go back to his house. All Michael Myers wants in this movie is not justice or revenge. It's he wants to get back to his house. Now listen. It would be a little bit of a stretch, even for this video, for me to say that this posits Michael Myers as a kind of decolonial terrorist force. That he's somebody who is trying to reclaim land or space that was his. Trying to say that Michael Myers is a metaphor for the Palestinian people, okay? I wouldn't say that, because Michael Myers is supposed to be evil, and of course, no one who's decolonized is evil. Palestinians are not evil. But I do think there's something about this turn in the movie where it's emphasizing his home, that he does just want to be in this place, and he will kill whoever he has to get there. As my final piece of evidence, I want to read the closing monologue from Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis's character. Except I'm going to do something here. I'm going to replace the word Michael Myers or Michael with the word terrorist. Okay? So, I always thought a terrorist was flesh and blood, just like you and me. But a mortal man could not have survived what he's lived through. The more he kills, the more he transcends into something else impossible to defeat. Fear. People are afraid. That is the true curse of terrorism. It will always be here, won't it? Even when we can't see it, you can't defeat it with brute force. If we only knew then what we know now, it is the essence of evil, the anchor that divides us. It is the terror that grows stronger when we try to hide. If they don't stop terrorism tonight, maybe we'll find it tomorrow, or next Halloween, when the sun sets and someone is alone. You can't close your eyes and pretend it isn't there, because it is. In this way, Michael Myers becomes this duty of memory and forcing us to think about things we don't want to think about. I want to note there, the actual words, she does say terror. She refers to Michael Myers as the terror that grows stronger when we try to hide. So, fortunately, we have a lot of problems. We have a lot of problems in our world. And there have not been major external terrorist actions in the United States for a while. Plenty of internal terrorists. But if this movie were released, if this movie happened to be recorded in of August 2001 and released in October 2001, I think we would have seen it. And if it was released in 2005, in the heat of September 11th remembrance and thought, I think we would see it the same way. So what do you think? You can tell me in the comments. Is Michael Myers Osama bin Laden? Am I going too far with the coding him as a sort of post-colonial vengeance figure? Jesus, he sounds like Batman, actually. That's how Batman thinks. The more he transcends into something impossible to defeat. Okay, that's a whole nother video. Tell me in the comments if you want to see a video about how Michael Myers is actually Batman. All right. Well then, until next time, I'm going to get to my Billy Woods video on my main channel. Everyone who comments here, I'm getting to it. Dude's complex. There's the camera.